It's 4
I
o'clock.
had a couple dragons.
It's not 10 o'clock yet. Tyron will shut up now.
Is everybody all settled, comfortable? Got a good seat, ready to learn about being an imposter? Or wait, is it about how to be an imposter or that we're not actually imposters? It's hard
There's
to tell.
too many people here for an imposter.
Yeah, y'all are all together and confident looking.
This
is crazy. All right. So first, before we get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about DragonCon's charity for 2023. It's Cure. It's on this. You've got some QR codes down front. You've got one for Cure, one for our DragonCon digital media track. Link tree, which takes you to all the stuff. If you're new to the digital media track, it is just a crazy group of rebels that just make stuff for fun and like to share and talk to each other. And you can be a part of it. So as imposters, you should all join and hang out with us, and we can all convince each other we're pretty good at what we're doing, and it's a lot of fun. But back to Cure. Cure is dedicated to conquering childhood cancer through funding targeted research while supporting patients and their families. So that's the con charity. Use the QR codes to donate, and DragonCon will match up to $125,000. If you happen to work for a place that matches charities, they might match too, and we make tons of money. So you can give to them if you can. And the track sponsor for the digital media track is the Cat. And for over 22 years, they've been empowering lives through disaster relief, food distribution, orphan care, and more. Great charity. They're on the QR code over here. So if you want to scan them and feel like donating, that would be awesome. But aside from that, we're here to talk about imposter syndrome and what we do to get over it. And a bunch of these people up here, these are all experts in their fields, which is the perfect way to scare someone who has imposter syndrome, is they know exactly what they're going to do. So we're all here to talk to them first. But first, I figured we'd start with defining what is imposter syndrome. And I'll let them introduce themselves. So imposter syndrome is the condition of feeling anxious and not experiencing success internally, despite being high-performing in external, objective ways. I don't know if we agree. We can figure that out as we go along. But I'm going to hand it off. First of all, I'm Steven Adams, moderator of the panel. I do a show called Those Were the Days about retro TV. We watch an episode of old TV, and then we talk about it. Just like every podcast on the internet is like, watch a thing, talk about it. That's what we do. It's a lot of fun. Check that out. But I'm going to hand it off to good friend Swan.
Yeah. So hi, I'm Swan. I am a Swan named Emily all across the internet. I am an artist. I am on the podcast of Surprise Attack Book Club and the chat show. In addition, I also run groups of artists who get together and make art based on a thing called the Doodle Crew. And I'm also on a show where a friend of mine brings me a piece of Shakespeare prose and I illustrate a whole comic page based on it. And you can find all of those on YouTube.
And I have to follow that up. So I'm Chris Kersey. I have a YouTube channel called Kersey Fabrications. I am a software developer, been doing it for, I guess, about 20 years now. YouTube channel is doing pretty good, about 40,000 or just shy of 40,000 subscribers. But I do 3D printing, I do props, I do electronics. And I've been working on an Iron Man helmet with a full heads-up display, and now it has a AI integrated into it. So I'm supposed to talk about my accomplishments, and that's what I'm doing.
Well done.
Hi, I'm Winton Bean, also Forging Winton on Twitch, TikTok, and Etsy. I'm a blacksmith, and I do everything from large prop weapons
Don't hit me with it.
large prop weapons for cosplays that I do, or small knickknacks here and there.
That's sexy. I'm Tyra Burton. I do social media. You might have seen some of it through our track. I'm also a professor of marketing over at Kennesaw State University. I teach about digital media and social media. I have a podcast with Coles College called Building Bold Connections, where if you want to learn about leadership, we're the podcast for you. And I have 2 podcasts that I keep threatening to relaunch, and I do this every year, but this year it's going to happen because that man in the front row over there, Geek Meet Social and the Geeky Side will be coming back. So that's me.
And I'm Philip D. Keating. I am an improv comedian and musician. I am one of the creators of Botched, a D&D podcast, which has been running for about 7 years now.
Nice. Awesome. Good to have everybody here. And if we've got a mic up front, if anybody does have a question throughout the panel, something pops in your head, stand up there and speak loudly into the mic. We are being live streamed. Good to know. So you might show up on the Twitch, but that's okay. It's cool. It's going to be great. But I figured what I would start with, we're all up on this panel about imposter syndrome and how we deal with it. I'm guessing we're all sufferers of it. But really, are we sitting here because we got over it? Did we get over it, or how does it show up?
Do you ever get over it though?
That's where we're going. That's where we're going. How does it show up in your creativity, and how does it ever cause you pause? What's its face when it shows up in your life? Yeah, you can go with you or.
Oh, it's it. I'm here out of spite for it. That was my motivation. No, it's still absolutely fully there. But I don't like the idea that it gets to win. So I'm showing for it anyways.
Nice.
I think I'm here because it's always in my head, even though I fight it, and even though I have plenty of reasons to believe it doesn't exist, it still exists. And so that's the hardest part, I think, is that I have plenty of people in my life that are supportive of me. My family is super supportive. And they tell me all the time that I'm successful and that they love what I do and that I should be proud of what I've done. But yet there's that voice in the back of my head that still says there's more and that I haven't accomplished everything that I've set out to do. And so, yeah, I don't know what would make it go away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, just kind of similar to you guys, working through it, trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong for the most part. And yeah.
Yeah. So anxiety is lovely, isn't it? So that's where mine comes from. And anybody have ADD in the room? All right, my fellow people. It kind of throws a lot of imposter because I have a bad habit of not completing things because of an ADD. So that does not help at all. And I teach in social media and digital marketing, which is like the field that changes every 3 seconds. So I frequently feel like I know nothing. And then somebody reminds me that I might know something. But yeah, I think for me, it's like, no, I don't know how to do that, but I really do.
If anybody knows me, my main issue is that I hold myself to unachievable goals and standards. So whenever I kind of get off stage, I instantly start breaking down my performance on how it wasn't good enough. And no matter what people tell me that, like, yes, this actually did work and you're just in your own head, I can't get past it because the minuscule mistakes that I make are always amplified in my own brain, even though the crowd misses them completely. So even to, every year I have 2 big panels that I do upstairs, and everybody always tries to tell me that they were great, but I will always just seclude myself and then talk myself, about how bad we actually did.
Yeah.
So that's my imposter syndrome.
You just want to wallow around in it.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
Of course, and just realize, it's kind of like even playing live music, where if I miss a note, it's the only thing that I will focus on for the entire rest of the hour performance, even though it made no difference to anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that playing off of that, the idea of goal setting is real important. I like to set goals for myself. I like to say, this is what I'm trying to achieve. This is what I wanted out of this particular thing. And I find it apparently hard to set achievable goals. Like sometimes they're very realistic and they're like, okay, I can make that. That's definitely a bar I can reach. And then sometimes I set bars that are probably a bit too unrealistic. And then when I don't achieve it, I set myself up to not meet my own expectations. And no one else was expecting it, but I was. And so it becomes a problem.
Yeah. So going back, you said you brought up wallowing around in it, after you perform or whatever it is that you're doing. Yeah. So like this is a question for anybody that feels like they have an answer for it, but does it ever help to go back and listen to the thing or watch the thing? Does that work for you as maybe a way to get past it?
Most certainly. So, let's take an example of last year. We had a very successful, good botch podcast upstairs. And in a moment, I was really upset because in my own head, I have for comedy like a laugh per minute timer that I want to go off. And it was completely skewed when I was up on stage, because when I went back and watched the YouTube, those numbers that I internally were missing were hitting constantly. And when there wasn't, it was storytelling. So the crowd was still engaged, but I was just so hyper focused on that fake number that wasn't actually happening that it just kind of pushed my imposter syndrome to the full front of my face.
Yeah.
as I just sat up there like,
Yeah.
great.
Sipping your can of beans.
Yeah, just sipping a can of beans up there.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is interesting, like especially with the hardware guys, you guys talking about doing blacksmithing and stuff like that, you don't have much feedback. Like you're not looking for laugh tracks like a comedy person is.
Yeah.
So is there something that you do when you're live streaming a blacksmith event that makes you feel, is it the tool or is it the engagement? What is the thing that makes you feel like you're the imposter in that
Usually
area?
it's engagement on my end.
Yeah.
I usually stream to generally nobody. So so usually my imposter syndrome is just coming in from, am I doing good enough? Like, is there something I need to change? Stuff like that. From that, where I'm just like, what's going wrong on my end? So
I think that I think social media in general skews your expectations. And I think everyone up here will agree with that because there's always someone better than you, and there's always a bunch of people better than you. And I mean that, and it's not like they're better at what you do, but maybe they're better at social media. Maybe they're better at getting the crowd and getting the audience and getting the likes and the views than you are. And I've learned that it has nothing to do with your skills. It has nothing to do with your what you're producing necessarily. It's just the nature of social media. They've attracted that following. They've got that following. And so you will set your expectations to any number of the people that you look up to or any number of peers in your field. And when your YouTube video or your live stream doesn't get the viewership that they do, you wonder, well, what am I not doing? What am I not doing as good as they are? And I think a lot of us look back at our skills and go, well, maybe the stuff we're making isn't as good. Maybe the what they're looking for, I wasn't able to provide. But as we all know with social media, it could be any number of other things.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it could just be that, well, they've been doing it for 5 years more than you. It could be that, I don't know, they've just got one of those magnetic personalities that I will never have. And so I think we all always have to look a little bit broader at the whole picture when we're dealing with social media.
And I think it extends beyond that too. I mean, I'll say, sitting at an artist table in Comic-Cons, like watching people buy from people around me and not from me. I was like, oh, what didn't I do right? How did I not set up my display right? Like, what's wrong with my art and all of that? So for me, the part of it, when you talked about reviewing stuff, I work better off of data and like analysis. I'm like, okay, so if I go back and I watch, my thing was always, because I was so harsh on my voice or my personality, like, where am I umming? Where am I awing? Where am I doing things that are making me feel worse about my performance? How can I work on that? But also in a weird way, it was the more I did that, I almost desensitized myself to the immediate like knee jerk of like, okay, you do this every time and it sounds bad and that's what trips you up. So the more I'd gotten used to that and making those changes, then when I would watch back on something, I could catch the new things that I did wrong. I find new things to do, but it helped me grow. And to the point of, there is always going to be someone better than you. That doesn't have to be a bad thing. That can be an educational thing. It can be, for me, the number stuff. Like, okay, so what do they do? Is it because that other person is posting so many times? Is it their consistency? Is it their time? What are they doing that is a mathematical thing that I could look at that is removed from emotion? And that was my way to, if I could separate that part, then I could trick my brain into doing what it was supposed to do.
That's really impressive, because I know plenty of people, the emotion just is tied to the creation, and that's, I think because we're creators, you love making music, you love making art, you just pour your soul into it. Like, please like it.
Please like me.
Please somebody like it, which takes me to the social media question. And Tyra, since you do the social media thing, because I'm bad at social media, real bad, but there's been a lot of a focus on mental health and social media and engagement, and do you think that's a big contributing factor for a lot of people, where they don't feel good enough because they're trying to fish for likes or looking at their latest art and not seeing?
Yeah, I think that you have to just kind of let the numbers go. But that's not actually what trips me up in social media. What brings my imposter syndrome out is the fear of somebody being an app. I'm jerk. I am so sorry.
We caught it.
I did. Right.
We have our swear jar.
Anyway, I am the girl who has sworn before 10 o'clock twice now. Nice to meet all of you.
It's for the children.
It's
Swear
for
for the
children.
children.
Swear for the
Yeah.
children.
Curse for kids.
So for me, it's
Spell it with a K.
so bad. And now I've hit him, and that's even worse.
Always hit your children. That's right.
Well, I'm going to hit you, Phil. So, crap, what was I saying? Okay, deep breath, impossible. I'm going to hide underneath the table now. I don't want to do that. So for me, it's the fear of somebody calling me out as being an imposter.
Mhm.
And it's trolls. It's one of the biggest things. One of the biggest reasons I've not done camera work. So our open mic night, I'm going to push this. We have an open mic night for our channel. Anybody that's involved with the track can say, hey, I'd love to hop on an open mic night. You want to do your show? You want to try it out? Come to our open mic night on Tuesdays on Twitch. You want to be interviewed by somebody? That will probably be me. We'll do that too. But it's helped me get over being in a camera because I was so frightened because social media is it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it is a cesspool as well. Okay. And so it's the cesspool that worries me because if I see it, then that's the only thing I see about my performance or what I've done. As soon as somebody points it out. So if you're Virgo and you feel this in your soul, like I do, hi Virgos unite, we got to be perfect. And if you're not perfect, somebody on social will tell you.
But I mean, that's what we do is hyper focus on that, right? Because like as a podcaster, we've got like 500 iTunes reviews. And I still reference the 1-star review I got 4 years ago from a guy in Australia. Like, it's still like in my side, and it's a joke, right? But no, like I'm really like Australia's now ruined for me because that one guy.
If you go there, it's ruined. Like the whole
I'm not
thing
allowed. Like I've been exiled because I will find Chad 847 in Adelaide because
That's
his
really
review.
Well, when you do find them, then you just test out those roles and show
Yeah,
them.
I'll give you a 1-star review.
You just got to find him and turn him. We just need to sit. Let's have a coffee. Let's work this out.
Sure.
That one review.
That's not what he wants to do.
No. And again, if you guys want to ask questions or pop up, we got plenty of time for that and whatever you need. If you got something, I don't know, just talk about whatever you want. But as far as Tyra was saying, the open mic night deal, like when she said if you're involved with Digital Media Track, the way you get involved is you just scan this down here and you get in the Discord and then you're involved. It's amazing.
That's it. That's really
And then
all
you
we
can
want.
be a part of it. It's not an exclusive club. It's full of imposters like us. Half the reason any of us are sitting up here is like, I don't know, maybe I'll email them and just see if I can get on a panel. And like it's amazing.
Some of us just have a friend that was involved and said, "Hey, why don't you come do it?"
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Oh, that's even worse.
Literally, yes.
Yeah, I remember years ago when like the big podcasters were here, like This Week in Tech group and stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it would be so cool to be up there, but I'm not nearly good enough. And now here I am.
Hold on. Can I tell you guys a story real quick about the biggest imposter syndrome that I've ever had?
Yeah.
It happened in this room about 6 years ago. I was just new to digital media and podcasting, all this, and I was thrown on a panel with the creator of Nightville, one of the Mick Elroys, Brian Brushwood, and Justin Robert Young, and then me. And it was like, these guys have a very, million YouTube account. These guys do their tour. And then me, this schlub from Philadelphia who tells genital jokes and gets paid for it. And like everyone's telling these epic stories is like I'm physically in the middle of the table with everyone around me, right? And just like panic attack, just full on panic attack, and just like disassociated from my body. And it was just like, I've never had a panic attack before. I get to do it in front of about 150 people with famous people in my field. And yeah, I had to tell a very offensive joke to kind of break out of that, which you could hear the wind. The wind literally left the entire room. You could hear it gush out the back. And I was just like, we're just doing great up here. But the thing is, like, I can now look back on that moment and be like, no matter what happens, I'll never be able to get back to that point because I've set up just little point breaks inside the practicing of doing it. Like any new skill, the more you do it, the more comfortable you are doing it, right? Even when I walked up in here, like I had a little bit of anxiety, even though I've been doing this for so long. But it's just like getting on that bike or picking up that guitar for, old time's sakes and just working through it in front of 150 of your closest strangers,
Yeah.
But they're nice strangers.
No, I don't know them.
They seem.
This guy looks like he could take me to hell really quickly.
It'll be
Yeah.
all right.
He's going to show me.
Yeah.
So a question. Have you ever felt like you don't have imposter syndrome enough to be someone with imposter syndrome?
That's the level up of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
It's Inception.
So I found this on Twitter recently, which I brought with me. It was a post that was just like, this is going to be so perfect. It's a thing called meta imposter syndrome. When you know a lot of people that have imposter syndrome, but you witnessed how competent they are, so they're not like you in your imposter syndrome. And I was just like, this is just gold. That like I found this 2 days before the panel. So
I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
I think most of the time, like you'll have moments where you feel like, oh, I mean, look at the thing I made. It's really good, so I must know what I'm doing a little bit, right? And then it's you set it aside and you move on to the next thing, or you try something different, and it doesn't go as well as the last one, or it's taking you longer than the last one took. I mean, it doesn't even have to be that the end product wasn't as good. Maybe it just didn't get as many views on YouTube, even though you were proud of it. And that always hurts, right? I think it always hurts where you feel like you've accomplished something, you're proud of it. But as we've talked about, the social media response wasn't what you were hoping for. And that's terrible for imposter syndrome, because you might feel that what you created was up to what you were going for, but other people didn't seem to notice. And that sucks.
I take screenshots. Like when I get good reviews or somebody says something that's like, I want to remember it, I take screenshots. And when I start to feel that way, I go and open up that box of screenshots to remind myself that somebody at one point was bamboozled and thought I was okay.
It's like, we called that a words of affirmation jar or whatever.
Yeah.
We made one for my mom for her birthday and just put like nice notes in there. So you can just pull it out anytime. Yeah, I'm not looking for points, but but
to the point, I mean,
helpful.
doing something like that and possibly starting a board where you actually want to physically post that, something you could turn around and look at every now and then, would probably be a good idea.
Yeah.
I think it's why this community as well, like the Discord channel and all of that, like I don't get comfortable enough to sit on panels and talk about this stuff without the support of other people who are like, no, you're fine. I was like, that seems like a really big compliment. I don't know. So that can be really nice. And it's coming from the art side of it, it can be the beautiful part about having good friends who can give you good feedback, not just positive praise, but actual critiques. Give me like, okay, no, please tell me something that I could do better that would make this more engaging, make me sound better to you, but also they will do it with love and compassion, because that's the feedback that is actually important and helps me the most with keeping it coming back up here.
But to address your question directly, I think that the imposter syndrome comes and goes, and some days you feel it more than others, and so some days you're like, oh, I've overcome the imposter. I am no longer an imposter. I'm better now.
And then Tuesday comes.
And then Tuesday comes. Next week is here, and now it's time to feel it all over.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster. Go ahead, Kurt.
So as a fellow imposter and related to this, the question that I have for you is, what would it take for each of you to not feel like an imposter?
a frontal lobotomy.
Very unrealistic goals you bring up.
Yeah, you're setting unrealistic expectations. It does come in waves, like Chris was saying. It comes in waves. Like you might do something really awesome and get received, and you feel good about it. Or in the midst of it, in the midst of making a thing, you can feel like that works for me sometimes. I'm on the internet, I'm doing a show, and it feels good, and I feel like I know what I'm doing. And then I try to just hang on to that afterwards. That's really the trick for me.
If I can always be busy enough that I don't ever sit and think about it, then I'm cured. If I just am always busy with something else, then no, it's gone.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Until that burnout comes. Yeah,
Ooh.
but Chris is right, man. It's all in cycles, right? Everything is in cycles. Like I have awful depression, and I can always feel when the spiral is coming, and it always triggers that imposter syndrome as well. And it's just knowing how to properly handle your own mental health to not fully go down that spiral, right? It took me years to realize that I can't do what M's doing and work myself to death, because then I'm not attacking the problem. I'm just avoiding it with distractions. And so I just have little things that I get to do for myself, which is just, take yourself away for 5 minutes and talk to yourself and calm yourself down, or any other little tics that I have to help get me back to a good headspace.
I think the problem for me is that I always do set those new goals. And I think that there have been times in my life where I've achieved my goals. And so you'll have this lull of actually feeling like you're where you want to be. You've achieved your goals. And then I will go and do the crazy thing of setting new goals. And all of a sudden you're almost back in the cycle. And I don't want to put down that goal setting too much, because it keeps me driven. It keeps me always thirsting for more and wanting to be better than who I am today. But from a mental health perspective, you have to keep it in check. You have to know that you've achieved goals in the past, that the goals you're working towards now are in the future, and that you should keep driving towards them.
Yeah. There's an aspect of that too, I'll say, in mentorship or in teaching. And as I am a teacher, like, it's exciting. It's exciting to take something that I've learned and I've worked with and show it to somebody else and teach them and get to experience kind of that learning and growth, and that it lets me feel good in this thing that they're learning, and I can be a good resource for that. I think it's if I can feel useful for that stuff, then this point that I've gotten to, these things that I know now benefit somebody else, and that helps as well. And it gives me an out and a place for some of the anxiety, because they're not judging me on that part, I guess, as much. I guess
they're looking to you for the help.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I do these sorts of panels is because, like, I think the best medicine for me is to help others. And so, like, even the social media comments, while I love, obviously, the thing you made was cool, how awesome is that? Like, when I see a creator that comes behind me and points at me and goes, like, you were the inspiration for me making this, that is the best thing ever. And if we can do panels like this, and like someone in this panel goes, what you said here really helped me, that's the best thing in the world. Helping others, to me, is better than all the credit for what I did. Just knowing that I inspired other people or helped other people is.
I'm going to need you to go down to Adelaide to do a panel real quick.
Speaking of helping others, let's get our next question.
Oh, no!
You got such a long line. It's awesome. Go ahead.
Now we all get to the table.
Yeah.
So I'm a software engineer, and I'm trying to get more into the creative space, but the imposter syndrome, hence why I'm here, has gotten in the way of that. So, like, I kind of set the goal of, like, next week I'm gonna like actually make the times, but who knows if that's just a thing in my head right now. But how did you guys, because I think I heard some of you are teachers, some of you are also software engineers, how did you get over the initial of, like, I want to create this, but it's not in my current lane?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
All right, so software engineer, like, I'm a software engineer, Chris is a software engineer, both also creatives. Like, are you trying to design like an app? You're getting into game design, you're looking at podcasting. What's your
YouTube?
YouTube?
Okay.
You can be proud of that.
Yes.
YouTube is a legit career for a lot of people. You can make that happen. That's an excellent question, though. As far as, like, just do it, make a channel called this fake channel that I don't want to keep forever and mess around. Like, I know that people are going to tell you over and over, like, just do the thing, just go for it. And you're blocked because you feel pressure of, I got to do it right the first time. Software engineers, we're very binary, and, like, it's either good or it's bad. Right? I mean,
beep boop, Steve. Beep boop.
We don't have a maybe. Like, it either works or it doesn't, and there's no in between. But in creative space, maybes are everywhere. We're gonna maybe we'll do this. Maybe I'll try that. Maybe, and finding a place where you can try it and get comfortable with, like, I drew a line. That's not perfect. Well, I'm just gonna keep going and kind of break yourself out of that cycle of feeling like you got to get it right the first time.
Let me throw out something that's also hopefully comforting, but most people don't take it that way, which is that the first stuff you put out there, no one will watch.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And in this mode, it's comforting, because what you should do is you put up something out there, give it a good, clear title, as we like to do with our software. This is what it does. And then wait for people to find it and stumble across it. And that first couple of comments you get where someone goes, this really helped me. You really taught me how to do it, or what you showed me was really cool. Like, those are really powerful comments. Now, you may get one where someone tells you that you didn't do it right, but you learn from those.
Yeah.
Even if they're kind of a jerk about it, learn from those and make your next one better, and use those as educational points. But seriously, the first stuff you put out there, hardly anyone will see. You can learn from it, and then hopefully people will run across it eventually and tell you that it was helpful to them.
Oh, please.
Come on open mic night with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I promise I'll make you look good.
So
You'll have a good time.
especially to that, it's the accountability. And that can be, that doesn't have to be strangers. It doesn't have to be other professionals. Like, that was always my thing with talking to other comic artists who were so much more established than I was. Like, this is where I want to be, and I'm not there yet. But my peers are there, and other artists that I respect and I trust, they can hold me accountable. If I say, hey, I really need to get this pitch done, I really need to get these videos done because this is the content I want to create, like, bug me about this. For how I work, I tell my friends, I'm like, be mean to me until I get this done. But it's that if I owe it to somebody else, then it's no longer whatever's happening in here.
Yep.
Now I could let somebody else down. Absolutely not. That I won't do. So it's all of the ways to trick my brain. But part of that is, the trick is also, I am realizing that I am making these patterns and I'm making content and I'm getting stuff out there without being so focused on it. So that when I look back and when I finally figure out what I'm doing, I'm like, oh, I already did it 3 times.
Yeah.
I can do it a 4th time. I can do it a 5th time.
Invest time over money.
Yeah.
Right. It's very important, even for me. But it's growth, right? If you look at a band that you love on their first record, and then you look at their musical talent on their 5th, they're normally nowhere alike, because there's that growth and progression. So deadlines are important, because it's holding yourself accountable, right? With anything. If there's not that deadline, then you're just going to have excuses to keep pushing it down the road. So just be very firm on your own expectations and deadlines, and then be proud of what you make, because it's only going to get better. And the more that you work at it, the better it's going to get. And, my first stuff is unlistenable, right? But it also shows my journey and my progression on where I was to where I am now. And I can always look back at that and be like, you know what? You were there, and the work and time that you put in has now got you here. And you never know until you actually just commit to it and say, you know what? Hell yeah, let's go.
Go check out your favorite YouTubers, particularly ones in the space that you want to go into.
Yeah.
And go back to the beginning of their timeline and watch the oldest stuff that they put out there. And if they're honest and they've left their oldest stuff up on their channel, then you will notice that they started somewhere, and that is not where they are today. And I don't know of an exception to that rule.
Yeah. We go back and listen to our first episode of a show we did, Horseshoes and Hand Grenades, every now and then, and I'm like, oh, this was terrible.
Yeah.
And now, like 600 episodes later, it's pretty awesome. But, like, you got to know where you came from. Go ahead.
Hi, Barbie. Get ready for that.
Yeah.
So my question actually piggybacks off of this really well, because it's kind of like the opposite. My biggest thing about imposter syndrome is that I feel like I haven't reached the success that I would have liked by now. So I was wondering if you could talk about how success isn't linear, and how, like, you can hit certain milestones but still not be where you want to be.
Anybody want to run with
Who
it?
wants to start?
You're successful.
I'm
never
gonna
been
start.
Tyra.
So, and this is like true imposter syndrome. I won my university's teaching award, so I should automatically know I'm a good teacher. I still think I'm crap. So, but now what I do is I go back and I read what my students wrote, and that reminds me that yes, I did achieve that goal, and that it's okay to go for the next goal. And for me now, that's kind of flipped to me writing and doing other things. But every time I get behind the mic, it's a win. So I think every time you can do it and finish it, that's winning. And you just have to get up and go to the next one. Probably still feeling like I'm an imposter, but still picking up the piece of paper and saying, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, it goes back to keeping track of your wins and like things you did well. I mean, like at work, you have performance reviews every now and then. So, what did you accomplish this quarter?
Oh, I hate those.
I don't know nothing. You tell me. You're my boss. What do we do?
You're tracking what I'm doing.
Yeah, how do we do this? It's this. You just got to write them down so you can remember them for the future for those success. Because you're gonna have waves. You're gonna have times where you had that one episode that hit 60 listeners, and you're like, I am awesome. And then the next week it drops to 20. You're like, why? What happened? What did I do? And it's like, oh, well, that was you were promoted on iTunes that week for a minute, or Apple Podcasts. I'm old. I'd say iTunes, but it's you just gotta roll with it. Just keep writing things down and going.
Well, it's like TikTok. You'll
Yeah,
explode
same
at
thing.
50,000 and the next one has 10.
Yeah.
You know?
But here's the great thing: numbers don't matter,
No.
Yeah.
right? If it's one person or it's 1,000 persons, it doesn't really matter because for success, it can be gauged in many different things. I still have a job where I work 60 hours a week picking apples. And I'm still down here every year, doing my own thing and filling bigger rooms. So my success meter, started in one place and it absolutely changed halfway through doing this because of course I want to quit my job and do this full time. Like I don't want to be picking apples in August. That sucks. but realistically, I need that job to fund my creative side for right now. But for me, the successful side is bringing, joy and emotion from other people that I don't know. Success for me is I try to make my friends laugh at the table at least twice when we're recording, right? It's these little goals of success that make me happier, knowing at some point, if I do have the opportunity to put the time and the money and just go full into it, that I would have a good building blocks to do it, but we're not there yet for me personally. So just setting reasonable expectations for yourself, and then once you achieve those, make a new set of goals and try to work towards them as well.
I think too with the quitting the job thing, that's a big for creatives. It's a huge thing. Like taking that jump and doing that.
It's
and
terrifying.
It is absolutely terrifying. I did it. I quit my full-time job, and I was in that. I was figuring out what I wanted to do. Brand new, start full-time art in the middle of 2019. So things went weird. But what I've learned from that and keeping the successes collected meant that because the community that I was in, I could prove here's successful things, here's successful classes I've run, here's successful murals that I've painted. So now when I apply for a grant to do art, for an application to do more teaching, or to do any of this stuff, or submit my portfolio to be considered in an anthology, like I now have the proof. I have proof of stuff that I've done. And those, even though I look back and I was like, oh my gosh, that art wasn't as good, it lets me get to that next point of sending in the new things. So that kept my fear of not being good enough. I had at least the proof to click the send button, click the submission button, and it opened doors that then let me learn other things and do other new things, which then became new successes that I wasn't even necessarily looking for. So that was the keeping all of that information that I can, again, it comes back to data. I collected all the data, and now I can focus it and use it for good for my next new thing.
And a piece of advice that I heard earlier today for if you're doing Twitch and you're starting out early on, turn off viewer count is something that I'm going to start doing as well, just because having the low viewers definitely puts a hamper on how you're feeling. Turn that off, you're not seeing it. Out of sight, out of mind.
Just pretend there's 1,000 people there.
Yeah.
You are awesome.
And when you're dealing with social media, unless you're just particularly good at the social media aspect of it, like there's this one guy I always point to in my space that he's just really good at social media. Everything he makes, no matter whether he's made the same video 5 times, just in a different format, it just blows up, and he's just really good at it. But like me as a creative, my social media game is weak. And so I'll have one video that might get 10, 20, 1,000 views, right? I've had one video that really did well, but the rest of them are in that 2K range. And I've been doing YouTube for about 5 years, 6 years now at this point. And so that ebb and flow, just as you were asking about, it's rough because I have no idea what I'm doing. and I've been doing it for 5 years as far as social media is concerned, right?
We're gonna
And-
look at your SEO.
Right, and you start looking at that, you're like, oh, well, why did that one get 20,000 views and now this one's back down to 2? And you'll have a whole bunch at 2 again, and then and so that ebb and flow, like, will I ever have enough? Did I only have one big hit? And this, I think we're comparing ourselves kind of like rock stars who have like one big hit. Like, I am a one-hit wonder. And that's all I'm ever going to do.
More hits than a lot of people.
He's the Don McLean of prop making.
Right?
And just last thing, man, like if you're still having fun doing what you're doing, then you're successful.
Fun.
That's
Have
the
fun.
main thing you got to remember, because as soon as it's not fun anymore, then it's time to move on.
Yep. Speaking of moving on, I want to make sure we get to the rest of. We got a handful of people back here, and we're running on time. So let's hear what you got.
I was waiting for a while.
Yeah.
And so with imposter syndrome, you can be touchy with critiques. And so how do you know if a critique is valuable or not?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So I think source is important, genuinely. So I post my art, which is part of my heart and soul, out on the internet, and to however people receive that. But I think it's the, if this is someone who is just saying like, I don't like this, there's nothing for me to learn or necessarily gain from that. I can't use that. It's just for this person, as much as it breaks my heart, I will hold on to it forever. It doesn't teach me anything. Whereas if someone says, I think your color theory could be better, that gives me something to focus on. It was something that this person saw and noticed that they didn't like. So the
context.
Yes, thank you. Those are the words.
Yeah.
But the people giving you the review is important, and not always giving your time and energy to every critique or every feedback that you're getting.
Try to determine intent a little bit, even though it's very difficult for some of us. Is try to determine, was this person trying to be helpful, hurtful? Are they just a troll and they just wanted to pop in and get a virtual rise out of you?
Right.
And that, I think, intent's pretty important. And even if I've gotten actually pretty good at this, where you'll have a visceral reaction to a negative comment, even if it was meant as a constructive comment. You might have this visceral reaction of, wow, I can't believe they said that, or that was really hurtful, or I put my best foot forward. And what I'll try to do is come back to it later before I reply to it.
100%.
And then find out what could I pull from it. And then you can decide, should I reply, should I ignore, or should I delete? And that is good for your mental health, is to figure out, how do I want to respond to it? What do I pull from it? And does this person, do I need to validate them with a response?
So I'm going to tell you what a writer friend of mine does. She doesn't read her reviews. Her husband does. And then if he thinks it's valuable, because she trusts him, they've been married 40 some odd years, then, which hopefully they can still trust, but they've been married a very long time, and he knows her well enough to know how to frame it if it needs to be framed, or to just ignore it. And for me personally, I have a group of 10 women that we're all writers, and I trust them. So find a tribe, find some people that you trust that will be honest with you, that if you do read your own reviews and you need to make sure that it's actually accurate, ask those people.
I was actually speaking more from reviews from those more personal people.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, that's tough.
And I've had that, though. I stopped writing for probably about 6 months because somebody told me that what I wrote was a little violent, which might be a little surprising from Tinkerbell here. But, and I stopped, and I had to go back and remember it was their point of view.
Yeah.
And it doesn't discredit my art. So I hate that for you, because I think that's the hardest kind of criticism to
And
take.
if you get a negative response from them, though, you can dig into it a little bit to figure out where they're coming from, to figure out if there's something constructive to be had there, or if it, again, just like an internet person, should you ignore it because it's just a different viewpoint?
Yeah.
And I think you can take time with it, like we said, with even any review. Like, no, because the people closest to me that I trust a lot, if they are giving me a review like that, will hit a lot harder. It might be one of those where it's like, okay, I'm going to sit with that for a bit, and maybe we don't talk about this particular thing for a while. The friendship is still important. So I want to come back to it at a different point, when maybe this particular piece isn't so precious to me, and I can look at it in a different light.
But it's all
time is good.
And just one more is just like, but at the end of the day, it's your personal art. right? And so just one person might have a comment shouldn't make, like for me, I wouldn't change my entire structure of my show just because one of my very close friends didn't like something, because there could be hundreds of other people that don't have that same point of view. So it's just about, analyzing your own, what you want and your vision for what you're making. And then also trying to, have that awful balance of keeping friendships important.
Mhm.
I think time is that you really hit it. Just try to
The
Take
time
time.
is the most
let
Yeah.
it sit on the
Yep.
table.
Just
Simmer
really, really, really hard to do.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Debatable.
Although you're going to have 22 pages, that doesn't mean you've done a bad job.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
That's
Thank
my
you.
own personal perspective.
Mhm.
If you enjoy doing it, do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a
it's
good
like when your
message.
parent, whoever your parent is, tells you that you didn't do something right at home.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. All right, go ahead, sir.
I have a question, just for context. I was actually several years ago able to overcome all my imposter syndrome. I got like this cool creative job. Yeah. I got this cool creative job that like I managed to quit my day job that sucked and I hated it, and I overcame all of it. And then this year I got fired from that job because an AI can do that job in 8 seconds for free. So I was wondering if you guys could speak any towards like what happens when you completely fail and then have to start over.
Emily?
Pick me.
Emily, do you want to take this one, Em?
Emily has thoughts.
Yeah. Hear it.
So, biggest first thing, everything that you learned from that time at that job and all that you did, that is so, so valuable. Like, at no point do I want you to downplay like what you did there and the fact that you got the job in the first place. And the biggest thing for me that helped with that, it was something reframing it as failing forward. So I will be completely honest with you. The degree that I got from college was in an animation. The animation industry collapsed right when I was going into the working field. I never worked in animation. I got rejected from a ton of things. And because of that, I found comics and I found illustration that I really, really loved. So am I still embarrassed that I didn't succeed in the thing that I was so certain I wanted to? Absolutely. Am I embarrassed that I spent, 10 years working full-time jobs that were art, but not really, while I was still doing other stuff? Yeah. But because of those other jobs, I was able to have money to go to cons for the first time when I didn't have a huge inventory or a huge following. Because of those other jobs, I learned a ton about printing. I learned a ton about garment decorating. I now have skills that make me so much more valuable to the next place I'm going, to all of these things. So what you learned, the way that you can talk about this stuff, and even though AI is all the things that it is that I'm not going to get into, you are still more valuable than that. And your skills and your knowledge and your expertise are more important. And you are valuable going forward for that.
and you did
Well
not
said.
fail.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing
Yeah.
we should say. You did
didn't
not fail. AI is a whole mess, and we'll talk about
Yeah.
it one day. I think it's tomorrow.
Yeah,
There's
there's
some
another
panels on
panel.
that.
There's a
Yeah.
panel on that.
Yeah. I'm running that panel. It's going to be fun. And Kurt's going to be on it. But you did not fail, and you need to take that word out of your vocabulary when you talk about what happened to you.
You also need, I would, if being in software development, that people are like, aha, AI is going to replace you too.
Yeah.
But
It's
you
so
always
funny.
need
I'm
to.
the only one that can be replaced.
There you go.
I'm a farmer.
But with what you need to do is reframe your skills. Make sure that you know what you bring to the table that AI does not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Figure out what you provide that will never provide. And that's what you bring to the table, and that's how you sell yourself when you're approaching, new employers looking for your next gig. Is you need to explain why they need to hire you over an AI. And if you can do that, I think that will give you confidence, and that will also give your employer confidence on why they're bringing you on board. Because there's no way you've done a job for X amount of time and have not picked up skills that the computer still can't do.
Yeah.
I could sit right here and like most of these people, explain what AI can do and then explain what it can't do.
Yeah.
Right. I use AI as part of my job now. It is one of my tools. Right. But it can't do the pieces that I can. And I think it's important to be able to frame yourself in that same regard.
Well, we got about 10 minutes. I want to make sure we get to the next questions because I don't want to leave anybody hanging. So, go ahead there.
So short. Oh my God. Hi.
Oh
what's
yeah,
up?
just whatever you need to do.
Thank you. So my situation is that like I've managed to do some of my creative dreams. I'm writing part time, starting to bring in some decent money. I'm starting to be able to produce what I want, and that's really cool. But because there's always a
coming.
Yeah. Like the imposter syndrome in some ways only got worse, like, especially after like a lot of praise, and I like start to escalate myself. So I'm wondering what you do to regulate that emotion when you're in the thick of it. Like at the moment when the head gremlins come out, like how do you wrangle them so you can get to work?
So my head gremlins come out the second somebody praises me. So what I do is I try to I just stop it and I try to be in the moment and I try not to make, you know how somebody says you did something really good and you're like, oh yeah, but.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to stop doing the oh yeah, but. I try to just absorb it and say, thank you. I really needed to hear that, you know, which is really hard because I'm like all about everything I did wrong.
Accepting the praise. Accepting the praise is really important. Taking a moment to
praise,
listen.
Philip.
Yeah, listening to
it.
Accept it.
Come here.
No.
Yeah.
I hate
You're
it.
really wonderful.
I think it's too for that part of it. I am always scared that I will then become complacent in that piece of it. So the way I kind of look at it is like stat building in an RPG or something like that. I'm like, okay, so right now this level, I put all of those points in that thing. Great. But now this next area that I'm going to go into, okay, this is the color theory area, which is a lot more challenging for me. So I'm not going to worry about the anatomy part as much right now because I know that I'm going to need to focus on the color theory. So it gives me a new place and a new drive to kind of work towards. And I don't have to necessarily just be like, nope, I've got it and everything's fine. But it is here's how I can build into this skill set and put more energy into this side of it, which is maybe not something I'm as confident in or not something I've hit as much success in. So if your writing is getting great praise, then maybe now it's okay, so do I want to take on promoting stuff on Book Talk or something, like something brand new? Right. Yeah. But something, and it doesn't have to be that, but anything that's like, okay, or, do I want to suddenly start illustrating my own covers or some part of it where it's building towards this whole thing that you're making, but it's maybe not the thing that you are feeling really good about in that moment.
Or just sit in the praise.
Yeah. Also that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure feeling good about it is like what it feels like in that moment. It's the yep, you're a fraud. You have no idea how to string a sentence together. How do you even speak English? That's the feeling.
Yeah. That's a cognitive distortion is what they call that. Deep breathing. Deep breathing. Really circular.
Also, you can
breathing.
Focus back on the work.
Yes.
And I try not to make this like an endless cycle because that can be a huge problem.
No,
of
all
where,
work, no rest, no brain activity. Right. Perfect.
But it is nice to accept the praise, but then look at what you're doing next and get back into it, because I feel like the least amount of imposter syndrome I ever feel is when I'm doing the work.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's when I have the most.
And so maybe someone's, everyone's different, but like when I'm actually building something and I'm seeing the progress and I'm like, wow, that really turned out good. And I'm really proud of myself because it turned out exactly the way I envisioned it. Mm-hmm. That's when I feel the best. So sometimes when the imposter syndrome creeps on, I feel like just do more work and that feeds it. That I'm am capable and I am good at what I do.
Yeah, I say self-medication and seclusion.
That's what I've been like. I'll write at 3 a.m. like blind drunk, because then I can't feel anything.
All good writers have self-medication.
Well, and he has the dark side of fear.
Yeah, that's not every statement made by the panel is condoned by Dragon.
It wasn't me speaking; it was my imposter.
Right? Yeah, of course.
This isn't coffee and water up here. Are you kidding?
Let's try to see if we can squeeze in. Let's try to squeeze in a couple of questions. I want to get you all up here so bad. Okay.
So ironically, as I'm standing here thinking, this is great and dandy, and you know it.
Yeah.
But then you're sitting there and you're just like, yeah, but should I really get up there? Like quite literally, like just living out the definition of it. Being like, I don't think I should go up there because I really don't have anything to say. I was like, all right, that's my life. Okay, so I'm not. This might be all over the place. Okay, so how do you learn to be disciplined and all of the things that, in my opinion, are more of a logical based thing, and then in flux with the emotion thing, because it's like, how do you absorb it without it consuming you? How do you know anything can happen to you at any time, and that's supposed to be a good thing? What happens when you face it, you discover that that is true? Ooh, great, you're successful in your life. Okay, great, don't care. But what happened? How do you feel but not feel? How do you function off? There's too many freaking decisions. There's too many options out there. It's BS.
Yeah.
Just like, give me 2 options. Then I'm like, I don't know, man.
I want my ocean to be a
And everyone's
river,
like,
like a small
a nice little stream, a babbling brook. That's overwhelming.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I'm not trying to crap on the fact that that's a beautiful thing to have, because I know what it's like not to have it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it any easier to live it.
Yeah.
So what the crap?
The
guys?
creative
Got anything?
portion's the hard part.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like even when I'm successful at the thing I'm doing, the blacksmithing, the programming, the whatever, then you have to go that next creative level and put yourself out there, make the video, make the Instagram post, and that gets very emotional. That's where the creative side even comes out even more.
Exactly. So
And anything can happen.
That's yeah.
And how do you get okay with that?
As a father of 3 who really does push them out there and try to get them to be creative, put themselves out there. I see it in their eyes when they're scared of what social media will do to them. That's why they won't do it. And so I continue to just support them, love them as the parent. And I guess I would say, look to your friends and family to support you and trust them when they tell you you're good enough. A support system's really important as you're putting yourself out there.
Yeah. Also, for me, the genuinely biggest thing was done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
If it's done, if it's out there,
Finish the work.
that's something. If it just lives in my sketchbook forever and no one ever sees it, it doesn't mean anything. And I create art for many, many reasons, but it being posted, it being out there is better than it being whatever perfect means in my head. And the goal then, we're coming back to me being spiteful at the beginning. If I make enough of it, I'll bury the stuff that I don't like as much. And there'll just be more of it that they can't find. They can't find the bad stuff. I'll just keep making more art because fine. I can do that. I can make more.
And I used to be a huge people pleaser. And it took me a lot of years to realize that saying no is okay. And I still have times where I want to make sure that everybody around me is good and I'm not. And I actively just have to remind myself, like, hey, look, nobody's going to worry about my own mental health except for me, right? And I want all of my friends up here to be okay. And I'm sure they all want me to be okay, but it's always up to me to make sure that I am okay. And I got to worry about myself before I can worry about anybody else. But I used to say yes to everything. People would come up to me and want me to guest on their show. Yes. They want me to help them with their YouTube. Yes, I'll do this. Yes. And it just no. And finding a way to say no, you can do it graciously and not be spiteful and just be like, you know what? I would love to do that right now, but unfortunately, for my own mental health and my scheduling, I just can't do it. And let's talk about it, down the road and see where I am then.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I hate to have to.
No.
We're one last question, but we don't have enough time. We're running. We got to start
Speed
closing
round.
it down.
Speed
Shout,
round.
speed round. Yeah, just yell it out as quick
All
as you
right,
can.
so I am neurodivergent.
Okay.
So when I accomplish something, I don't feel a sense of pride. All I feel is a slight sense of relief, and then I completely criticize myself. I don't feel that sense of pride that normal people feel after they've accomplished something. Like I'm getting ready to go to grad school, and I don't feel accomplished in the slightest. I don't get that feeling. So what do you do?
I've never felt accomplished either.
Yeah.
Come to think
Feel
of
the
it.
exact same way
We're all
you do.
there with
Yeah.
you.
Finding small
Understand
victories.
you're not
Yeah.
alone, and other people are the same way.
We're all in it together.
Yeah.
Everybody's suffering through trying to figure out that they've been worth a nickel for their whole life,
Yeah.
And I think back to writing stuff down, just
Yeah.
kind of do some introspecting. You got to get some tea, sit down. If you like tea, if you like coffee, that's fine, whatever. And just sit there and kind of go, I did this one thing. This is pretty cool. I hit a baseball. It wasn't a home run. It wasn't, just like I'm thinking of little stuff that can kind of send you down a trail of small successes.
And if you are a logical person, but maybe not an emotional person, like you're not feeling that accomplishment, because one thing I heard you say was that you acknowledged that you have accomplishments in your past.
Mhm.
You said you just didn't feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the way that you experience things, then like they're saying, write it down. Go, I know I accomplished it. I have this in my past that I can point to and said, these are my accomplishments. And maybe that's the way that you experience them and it's just different.
And how
Yeah,
how
it
you
could be.
feel about it is only personal to you. Like you don't have to feel the same way that we feel. You don't have to express your joy over something. It is such a personal experience in that. So
Personal victories, man.
personal victories. Yeah.
So, like, just real quick, I'm a musician. I've recorded and published a bunch of music, and the only thing that I've ever created that I actually loved was two of my friends were getting married, and they asked me to compose the music for them to walk down the aisle to. So it wasn't the best thing I ever made, but it's the most important thing that I've ever made in my life. And that's the one thing that I hold on, no matter what other music I think I make that sucks. I always have that moment that is the thing that's in my core memory and in my heart, that I know that no matter what I do, I always have that to reflect on.
Yeah, you got it, Nick.
Just find your core memory.
Yeah.
There's a good message to end
Yeah.
on.
Hey, we did it.
We did it. Thank you guys so much for showing up. Again, take a look at the Zakat stuff over here, the Cure down here. DragonCon's matching up to $125,000. Join us in the Digital Media Track Discord and all those links. You'll have a blast. And rate the panel.
Yes.
Rate the panel.
If you liked it, give us 5 stars.
No, I don't care if you liked it. Just write 5
go to another
stars.
place. You liked
He
us.
didn't.
I'm
Yeah.
telling
Still
you,
rated
you
5
liked us.
stars. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.